Hey guys, so today I am going to reveal my top 10 favorite underrated cartoons. Now, if Twitter has taught me anything, is that 99% of the population has no idea what underrated means. So, before I get into my list, I'm going to define it very quickly as far as what that word means towards animated shows. So, if the show is connected to $1 million franchise like DC, Marvel, Nintendo, the Looney Tunes, it's not underrated. Even if it was canceled after one season, it still had a built-in viewership before it even hit the air. People knew about it. People know about it. Also, animated shows have a much shorter lifespan than live action shows because they're more expensive to produce. So if a network spent the money to order episodes for a third season of an animated show, it's not underrated. If it has a if an animated show has 3 seasons, that's a standard run for an animated show. That's good. If an animated show has 5 seasons, that's amazing. If an animated show has more than 5 seasons, take a picture because that's a miracle. All right? Anyway, so those are my parameters, so you guys know. And of course, at the end of this video, I will encourage you to list your favorite underrated animated shows in the comment section. And that way you know which ones, what I mean by underrated. Anyway, so here we go. We're starting with number 10, Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd Century. This show has such a goofy, silly title. You know it's a blatant attempt at getting kids to watch the show by putting Sherlock Holmes in the future. But it's, honestly, as a Sherlock Holmes fan, it's one of the greatest adaptations of Arthur Conan Doyle's original works that I've ever seen, at least in animated form. So the future setting is just a little embellishment. It's just a little addition to the story. It in no way changes the character of Sherlock Holmes. It in no way gets in the way of the mysteries. And personally, I find it as a huge precursor to Stephen Moffat's Sherlock. Number 9, Pirates of Darkwater. This is a show that I unfortunately discovered a little too late. It's a show that has a definitive ending. It takes place in this fantastic kind of sword and sorcery world where like magic and monsters are real. It's the show is a combination of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean. And in this world that's mostly water, it's being consumed by this substance called dark waters, this black, oily stuff that is just consuming the world. There's a subtle environmental message to the show. And however, because it's a magical world, there is a magical way to stop the dark water. You can stop it by collecting the 13 treasures of rule, which can give you control over the dark water. So you can potentially use the 13 treasure to either control the dark water and take over the world, or make the dark water go away. So you have a group of good pirates and a group of bad pirates both hunting for the 13 treasures. So the show had a definitive ending. They find the 13 treasures and the show ends. It was canceled before that happened. I'm pretty sure they found, excuse me, I'm pretty sure, I'm going to put Milo's toy down, which he handed me. The show ended, they found only 9 of the treasures of rules, and the show was canceled, unfortunately. But it was a very cool, serialized action-adventure series that was serialized, that was a precursor to the streaming shows, which are all one long story told across multiple episodes. It was just a show that was way ahead of its time. Number 8, Mighty Max. This was a show that was part of a dying breed of shows that were exclusively made to advertise toys. However, this show was amazing. Now, what toy were they trying to advertise here? The Mighty Max toy line was the male version of Polly Pocket, and Polly Pocket was basically a dollhouse that was inside of a clamshell. You open it, there was the whole dollhouse was inside the clamshell, and it would come with little figurines, and you play, you play with your dolls in this tiny dollhouse that you could close and put in your pocket. Polly Pocket. So Mighty Max was the male version of that. Exact same concept, but the clamshells would be shaped like really badass stuff, like a dragon's head or like a skull or like a coiled snake. And you'd open it, and it would be this action-oriented playset. The interior of a spaceship, the mummy's tomb, an underground cavern full of lava, that sort of lava pools, that sort of thing. And the main hero was Mighty Max, who was this white blonde-haired kid with a baseball cap. So they made a cartoon based on that, and the cartoon was amazing. Definitely something that a lot of effort and energy went into to make it work. It had an incredible cast. Rob Paulsen was Mighty Max. Richard Mole was his bodyguard. Simon. Tony Jay was his mentor, Virgil. And basically what the Mighty Max cap did was it would open portals, and they could travel to all the locations from the playsets. And Mighty Max was the chosen one. He was the mighty one. It was his destiny to save the world, but he was just an average kid, and he didn't know how he was going to do it. But he would, because while Virgil was really smart and Simon was really strong, powerful barbarian, Max had the ability to just think outside the box and figure out unorthodox solutions to whatever threat or problem they would encounter. And so it was a lot like Doctor Who, in the sense that the Doctor is very smart and he generally finds a way to save everything that nobody else would think of, and that's exactly what Mighty Max would do. Number 7, SWAT Kats. So this was a show that was a direct response to the success of Ninja Turtles. There was a lot of animated shows and properties like Biker Mice from Mars and Street Sharks that followed the adventures of anthropomorphic animals saving the day. So much so that Barry Gordon, the original Donatello, did the voice of Razor on the show, one of the SWAT Kats. The other SWAT Kat, by the way, was T-Bone, played by Charles Adler. Anyway, however, the animation and the writing on the show was incredible. Like, a lot of people tend to say that, like, Porco Rosso and Tailspin had the best, like, aerial sequences out of any animated productions that they've ever seen. I would dare to say that SWAT Kats had aerial dogfights and sequences that were equal to, if not greater than, that show and that movie. Okay? At me if you want. At me if you dare. It was amazing. Just some of the coolest, most badass, legitimately well done animation. It would never get stale. Every time the SWAT Kats would get in their jet and like fly into action, what you were going to get next was always going to be unique. It was going to be cool. I had a friend in middle school that was obsessed with the SWAT Kats ship, and he would draw that plane over and over and over again in his notebooks. He had it memorized. So a show that was so cool, so well done, and unfortunately canceled due to parent watchdog groups putting pressure on the network over cartoons being too violent, because it was a cartoon that was focused on storytelling and action and not really caring about, delivering a message or doing things gently for kids. So unfortunately, the network caved in and SWAT Kats flew away. Number 6, Freakazoid. So I'm fully aware that in the hierarchy of Steven Spielberg produced animated shows from the 90s, Freakazoid would not be at the bottom. At the top would be Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Pinky and the Brain. At the bottom would be Pinky, Elmira and the Brain. Yes, that's a real show. Look it up. Hysteria, and then Freakazoid. It's not at the bottom, but it's not the most underrated. but it's almost there. It's close enough. To be more specific, Freakazoid would be a cult show, the very definition of a cult show, where it's not popular in the mainstream. Mainstream audiences don't know it, but the people who know it love it passionately. So for those of you who don't know, Freakazoid was Steven Spielberg's attempt at collaborating with Bruce Timm. Yes, that Bruce Timm, the creator of Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, and all the other DC animated universe shows. But Bruce Timm is a very story-oriented, character-oriented guy, and Steven Spielberg basically wanted Animaniacs, but with superheroes. So due to creative differences, they had to part ways. But if you're curious to know what a Bruce Timm produced Freakazoid show would have been like, just watch the Batman the Animated Series episode called The Creeper. That's what Freakazoid would have been like under Bruce Timm's control. But anyway, so Bruce Timm leaves the series, and it's then given to Animaniacs and Tiny Toon Adventures veterans, Tom Ruegger and Paul Rugg. And the two of them have to reverse engineer everything that Bruce Timm had created for the show and basically cobble together this superhero comedy show out of this material that they are not familiar with, that was never defined or fleshed out. And basically what they ended up doing was doing this kooky, wacky, surreal, unstructured variety show that adhered to their personal senses of humor. And while Animaniacs was like the Marx Brothers, Freakazoid was closer to Monty Python, where it's irreverent humor that doesn't give a shit whether or not you get the joke or you get the reference. This is happening. These jokes are being made about random things that you may be or may not be familiar with, but it's happening. They're going for it. They don't care if it's mainstream or not, what they're the subject matter that they're touching upon. They're going to parody Johnny Quest, and they're gonna parody David the Gnome, and they're gonna parody Ed Wood, and they don't care if you're familiar with that stuff. They're gonna make fun of it, and they're gonna do it in the most rock star, we don't give a crap, F you way imaginable, like Monty Python. And the only thing tying it all together was the character of Freakazoid, which is the most untamed and free and kooky character that can make anything funny, in my opinion, that has ever been created. So what I feel that still makes the show relevant is that character, that they inadvertently, whether they meant to or not, created one of the most unique animated characters of all time. Number 5, Sam and Max, Freelance Police. So based on Steve Purcell's comic book, which was then later adapted into a popular series of video games from LucasArts, I was shocked when this was adapted into a Saturday morning animated show, because this is fast, Dennis Miller level observational humor is what Sam and Max is. They are put into a lot of stereotypical like sci-fi, action-adventure scenarios, and the two are just commenting away on what's happening without any restraint as far as the rules of writing and the structure of a show of that type or a scenario of that type. You have a fast-talking, smart-ass dog and his partner, who is this ultra-violent logomorph, which is like cross between a bunny and a Wolverine. And like I said, they're just making fun of what's happening and being completely unaffected by it. And even if they are, they take it as stride. They're never bothered by anything, at least not too much, or at least not in a way that affects them or changes them emotionally. They're completely free, nothing bad. They're confident that nothing bad is going to happen to them because they, like Deadpool, they are aware that they're in a show. They break the fourth wall all the time. They see something dangerous about to hit them, and Sam says something along the lines of, it's okay, Max, we're going to survive this, because as far as these types of shows are concerned, everything goes back to the status quo within 10 to 20 minutes. And he's right. Everything goes back to the status quo. They survive it just fine, save the day, move on. So a show that's way, 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 way more sophisticated than the audience that it was intended to be for. Something that the older you get and the more you rewatch it, the more jokes you get, the more you appreciate it, the more you notice just how clever and how brilliant it was. Number 4, Clerks, the animated series. This is the Firefly of animated shows. This is a show that fans love and was canceled after a handful of episodes, but most fans didn't get to watch it because the network just raked the show over hot coals. They wouldn't air it on the same night every week. It was moved around all over the place. They wouldn't advertise it, so people didn't know about it. Most people didn't know that this show existed until it came out on DVD. That's how I discovered it. And apparently I was one of the first few people who bought the show on DVD because the first 100 copies would be signed by Kevin Smith. I bought it from his website, and mine has his signature, so I was one of the first 100 people to buy a copy of Clerks the Animated Series on DVD. And a lot of the reason why it didn't do as well as it did is because stupid-ass ABC wanted to get on the hype train of all these adult animated series that existed at the time, like South Park, Futurama, and Family Guy. They saw the success of those shows on cable, and they wanted to get on that hype train, and they picked up this adult animated show without really knowing Kevin Smith's movies and his universe. Just the fact that they didn't know that Jay and Silent Bob are drug dealers blows my mind. That if you watch the show, you notice that they're not selling weed on the show. So they had to change that. But still, in spite of that, it's one of the coolest, funniest things that Kevin Smith has ever done. He really took to the animated world. Even better than the show is the commentary behind the show, like them explaining that they didn't know what the hell they were doing. And then by the time they figured out how to make a 3-act story in 20-minute increments, the show had already been canceled. But, oh man, it's 6 amazing episodes of what could have been one of the greatest animated series of all time. But if that show had succeeded, I think we wouldn't have gotten all these amazing Kevin Smith movies that followed, like Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, Clerks 3. So in a sense, it's a good thing that it was canceled, but boy, would I love to see more of Clerks the Animated Series. Number 3, Cyber 6. I have talked about this show before. I am shocked that I haven't made a full honest review about it. I should really get to it one day because it is one of the greatest animated shows I have ever seen. Also incredibly short-lived, very unorthodox production. It is based on a South American comic that was, the cartoon was produced in Canada. It looks like anime. It's not anime. For some reason, it sounds dubbed, even though it's not. And it was made to be broadcasted in the United States. So it feels like an overseas show. It feels like a Japanese cartoon, but it is not. So very weird. So a lot of people that saw it on Cartoon Network when it first aired, they didn't know what to make of it. But if you give it a chance, you might be surprised. For those of you who don't know what it is, very quickly, there's this Nazi scientist that after World War II escapes to South America, where he takes his work with him, and he was in charge of creating a super soldier for Hitler, what he referred to as the Cyber series. Synthetic human beings with amazing abilities, but he couldn't crack how to make like the perfect super soldier until he got to the 6th iteration of the project, Cyber 6. Cyber 6 is a female super soldier who is perfect in every way, smart, super agile, super strong, but unfortunately he made her too well, and she has human emotions, and she questions why she should kill, why she should hurt anybody, just because she's told to do so. So she escapes to the city of Mariana in South America, where in order to hide from von Richter, she takes on the guise of an English teacher named Julian, who is male. She cross-dresses, makes herself this beautiful, perfect woman, makes herself, gives herself the appearance of this nerdy, feeble man in order to hide from von Richter. And to add a wrinkle to the plot, not only is she constantly von Richter attacking the city of Mariana with monsters and all his other genetic creations and other iterations of the Cyber series, not only does she have to deal with that on a regular basis as Cyber 6, but she's also in love with a fellow male teacher who thinks she's a man, who thinks she's actually Julian. So very innovative and brilliant storytelling. One of the few shows where I feel that her civilian guys is just as interesting as her superhero guys. Something that I think would be even more relevant and more hard-hitting and more appealing today at this day and age. But unfortunately, that just didn't get any more traction beyond the comics and beyond the cartoon. Number 2, Symbionic Titan. Another cameo from Milo. The fact that Cartoon Network screwed over Genndy Tartakovsky twice blows my mind. The fact that they canceled Samurai Jack during its 4th season after the show had won an Emmy, and then greenlit this show and canceled it after a handful of episodes, blows my mind. It's like you have gold in your hands. You have the greatest and most innovative animator currently in the industry, and you just let him go twice. Whoever was in charge, whoever was the new person in charge when that happened, was a fucking idiot. Thankfully, they made it up to him. A friend of his from the industry became in charge of Cartoon Network programming and brought Genndy back to the final season of Samurai Jack and greenlit Primal, which was excellent. So all's well that ends well, I guess. So what's Symbionic Titan about? While Samurai Jack was Genndy's tribute to sword and sorcery, Symbionic Titan was his tribute to sci-fi and shows like Voltron and Gatchaman that he grew up with. And it's about these 3 refugees from an alien planet that come to Earth, a princess, her bodyguard, and her robot butler, and they have to hide on that planet while they're formulating a strategy to go back and save her planet from this impossible civil war. But in the process of that, the main villain from their planet keeps sending mercenaries and monsters after them, and to defend themselves, they have these watches that activate these mech suits. And when the 3 of them join together, they form the Symbionic Titan, a giant super robot that they use to have these amazing kaiju-style battles throughout the show. And the show is very much about growing up, and it's a coming-of-age story for all 3 of the characters, with the backdrop, with that sci-fi action-adventure backdrop. Just a show that is pure genius and that should have gotten a much better, just should have given it more of a chance than what they did. And number 1, again, Megas XLR. Why the hell haven't I done a honest review on the show? I don't know. I need to get on it. I know, I hear ya. This is the one and only animated show that I've ever seen that I felt like it was made exclusively for me. It's like almost everything that I love crammed into one show. It's if Kevin Smith, Clerks, had directed Symbionic Titan. Just 2 slackers get a hold of a giant robot mech, and they use it however the hell they want. Yes, monsters and giant robots get in their way and they fight them and save the day, but they do so by destroying so there's so much collateral damage on the show. It's insane. And if uh if I know that I claim that Sam and Max don't care, somehow, some way, Coop and Jamie, the main two characters of Megas XLR, give even less of a fuck than Sam and Max. They're just completely oblivious, self-absorbed '90s guys. They're just '90s slackers driving this robot and doing whatever the hell they want. Occasionally saving the day, but at the expense of everything around them. Just one of the cool, most legitimately badass shows that I've ever seen. This show is pure metal. Unfortunately, they put it on Toonami, which I always felt was a more teenage-oriented animation block on Cartoon Network. I think this was more of a Adult Swim type show, where it was always borderline crossing the line, but not too much. And I felt like if they would have put it on later at night, it would have done a lot better with college students and people getting off of work, that sort of thing, with a more adult crowd. But that's just my opinion. At the end of the day, I think what's apparent is that Cartoon Network hates giant robots. Anyway, so those are my 10 favorite underrated cartoons. Again, feel free to voice your opinion and list your favorites in the comment section below. Have fun, respect each other's opinion, and feel free to talk to one another. If you see somebody else that likes a show that you didn't like, talk to that person, become friends. This is a good opportunity to discover that there are other people out there who like the shows that you like. Anyway, a few quick announcements before I sign off. Number one, yes, I have a bunch of scripted videos coming up. It just takes more time to make those, especially in my current circumstance. So please bear with me, but they are coming. But right now, on my Patreon page, you can watch a video that a lot of you have been asking me to do for a long time, but I didn't want to. But guess what? Who cares? You guys want it very badly, so I'm doing it. I am doing a video in which I reveal my Justice League script that I wrote when I was 12 years old, my first script that I ever wrote. So I am revealing the contents of that script that I wrote when I was way too young to understand story structure or character development. So for your enjoyment, for you guys to have some fun at my expense, I am revealing the contents of my Justice League script on my Patreon page. Now, if you want to check that video out, but you're not a patron, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/erod and pledge $1. That's it. $1. You get bonus videos, and in return, you're helping me produce the Blockbuster Buster and continue creating content for YouTube for your enjoyment. Thank you so much for your continued support, because the fact of the matter is that I could not do what I do without you.